Hi there, I'm Alex Tait. I'm Head of Technical Practice at the RIBA, and I'm here to talk to you about the RIBA 2030 Climate Challenge. So first off, the reason why we're all here is that we have a climate crisis. We have a huge amount of global daily fossil fuel emissions. There was a slight drop last year due to the coronavirus, but the Global Carbon Project believe this to just be a temporary blip and back to business as usual by the end of the year. So we have a serious problem, and it is our responsibility in the construction industry to do the best we can to solve that. At the moment, about a quarter of all global fossil fuel emissions come from the use of buildings, and a further 10% come from the construction industry. And our planet can only absorb about half of all the CO2 that is emitted. So we're continually building up and affecting our climate. In 2019, the RIBA joined the declaration of a climate and biodiversity emergency, and we confirmed our support to commit to the CCC's recommendation and our government's new target for a UK 2050 net zero greenhouse gas emissions. And our work at the RIBA is all geared around the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So we signed up to the UN Global Compact in 2016, and therefore we're supposed to place these 17 goals at the heart of our business. And what we have done for the construction industry is look at those core goals that all buildings contribute to. And we have reworked those slightly to match up with the construction industry rather than the global sustainable approach. And this has resulted in us looking at our core sustainable outcomes and associated metrics, and even building and construction standards that you can follow to help do better in each of these. We've identified the three that are of utmost importance, and those form our climate challenge, and I'll get into that in a little bit. This work is now fully embedded into our kind of core process map, the RIBA Planner work. We've selected all 8 of those outcomes, placed them into the planner work, and provided detailed guidance in each stage for each of those, and published a new plan for use guide, which enables projects to work through recording and tracking performance risks, undertaking light touch and then full post-occupancy evaluation services, and then feeding those back into projects as they progress, so that we continue to learn and improve our processes and our design work. The suite of guidance, starting from the 2030 Climate Challenge guide through our Sustainable Outcomes Guide, the RIBA Plan of Work 2020, and the new Plan for Use Guide, is available online to all. But we're here mainly to talk about the targets themselves of the 2030 Climate Challenge. And we've identified targets for operational energy, embodied carbon, water consumption, and then a few different health and well-being targets. And the reason for doing these is that we currently have a poor regulatory system that doesn't reflect reality. So at the bottom of this slide, you can see EPC ratings, and then actual energy use in kilowatt hours per meter squared per year for a variety of different buildings under the control of the developers that have joined the Better Buildings Partnership. And you can see these triangles represent a total or discoordinated correlation between the actual use of energy and its rating at the end of its construction. So the average F rating, for instance, is better than the average A. So there's totally no correlation between reality and predicted in these buildings. However, we can do better. If we abandon the regulated Part L model and move to the more detailed TM54, CIBSE TM54, or you could swap that out for passive house, modeling processes that we can get a lot more accurate, and we can build up a much better picture of the energy loop and the likely energy use, and then check in reality. And this is an example of a project in office building, to show that it's possible to get a lot closer, and we can get closer and closer the more we do this. So we want people to target actual energy use rather than just the regulated, and actual meaning energy use at the meter reading or from bills. We've also been working with LETI and the Whole Life Carbon Network in the past year or so to update our embodied carbon targets from the version we published in 2019. And these have worked through more detailed guidance on what is embodied carbon and what is whole life carbon, setting quite specific carbon targets for upfront and whole life, and then providing a much more effective definition of what embodied or what operational or what whole life carbon actually means. And we've adopted those LETI targets as part of the 2030 Climate Challenge. And when we talk about embodied carbon, this is the life cycle that we mean. So we're talking about all the carbon associated with the products and the construction, all of in use apart from operational energy and water consumption, so carbon associated with those, which is very important, but should be reported separately, and then all of the end of life stage of that building. We're not including module D, which is the reuse and recovery, the benefit that CO2 you can offset for future projects, so the recycled material, because we want to concentrate on the decisions that the architects can take about the assets themselves. We've set targets for office buildings, schools, and residential buildings, and we have those for operational energy, embodied carbon, and water use. We have a business as usual benchmark, which we have updated since the 2019 version. This is based on more recent research and working closely with LETI or with other bodies on what is currently the average in buildings that have been completed in the past year or so. We've abandoned the 2020 target that you may have seen in the previous version because we're in 2021, and we're asking people to aim for 2030 as soon as possible, but 2025 at least for now. The 2025 targets for operational energy have been slightly tweaked, but our 2030 target remains the same as set in 2019, and the operational energy target we share with LETI as well. I'll also show the schools targets. These have been developed with consultation with the Department for Education to make sure that we're picking up their pipeline of projects and their new requirements for contractors and their design teams in the targets that they're setting internally. And then for domestic and wider residential projects, we have the same suite. Again, the 2025 target's been slightly amended from the 2019 one, reduced a little bit just to catch up with some government progression, and the business as usual target has dropped significantly based on more recent research. Again, embodied target, we've worked with LETI, and possible water use we've taken from CIBSE guidance, and whilst working with the published recommendations of the CCC. We also have guidance on what good practice looks like right now. So that pink column before was our generally average for buildings completed in the past few years. This is best practice guidance in a similar guise. We don't treat these as targets. These are just an indicator to show whether any building that you're working on is likely to be doing well right now. But given that our challenge is about the completed building, this is really only of any use for a building you have just completed. We also have health requirements. This is not quite the same. These are not targets that we expect people to attempt to meet. These are a lot more strict, and they're about making sure that we don't have any unintended consequences of our design decisions, to make sure that we are still keeping a good eye on health and well-being targets, and we've picked the ones that we see as most important. And there are fairly simple process you can follow by using the various CIB-C or approved document or BREEAM guidance. So we've also updated the way our trajectories work. We're still saying that we'd like practices to aim for the 2030 targets now, though we do recognise that that is not always in the architect's gift. We do expect, though, that those projects that are in the design phase at the moment should at least be targeting the 2025 targets, so that we don't carry on our business as usual and totally blow the trajectory and have the construction industry contributing more CO2. The other key update from 2019 is the way we are now talking about the challenge. We want to make sure that this is about an attempt to meet the targets rather than a strict requirement. We know that some practices were slightly put off by the idea, and we want to make sure that everybody's aware that this is just about everybody having their best go, and that is what we need to do at the beginning. We will now be collecting data too. So we'll be asking practices that have signed up to provide us data with their recently completed projects on predicted gross regulated energy, predicted gross unregulated energy, and any on-site predictions for renewable generation. And then the core 2030 climate challenge metrics being the in-use operational data, so from meter readings or bills, preferably over a year, or at least covering winter and summer months and extrapolated. And potable water, again, the same approach from bills and meter readings, and then embodied carbon as following the RICS modules A to C, excluding B6 and 7. And we are doing this so that we can help grow our knowledge, we can identify trends and performance gaps or opportunities for improvements in different sectors, and so that we can help the research industry develop more and more guidance and inform our own activity in the future to help our membership do even better. We recognise that developing projects and providing data are not quite the same thing, though we hope that clients will be happy to provide some data. We recognise that it's not always in your gift to give it to us. So though we would like as much as you can provide, we do recognise that it's not totally in your gift. And likewise for embodied carbon assessments, though the process is becoming easier and easier as more and more guidance is developed, it is still a serious undertaking. And if you've not done it on the project, we're not expecting you to go away and do a full embodied carbon model just for our data. The main reason for doing this is to make better design decisions as early as possible. We also have new guidance on talking to clients about the 2030 climate challenge. So we have a guide for architects that they can use to build up their confidence. We have a guide for clients that architects can pass on. And we have template letters so that we can provide what the architect's ambition is, and then likewise from the client back to the architect to say, this is what we would like you to try and achieve. And you can find out all the information there is on our website at architecture.com/2030 challenge. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.